Hey there, friends! My name is Desiree, aka Momma Friendly, and I'm trying something a little different this year when it comes to our homeschooling. All of the main information is going to be found in the very first video of this series, which I'll link up here in case you've missed it. But the Cliff's Notes version is that I've been homeschooling my son his entire life. He's 9 years old and on the autism spectrum. He has nonverbal autism along with a few other medical diagnoses. My son also has a complete and absolute undying love for all things Disney, much like his mama. So this year I thought it would be fun to give our unit studies a little bit of a Disney twist. So every 2 weeks this year we're going to start a new unit study based on a Disney ride, movie, character, etc. We're going to be doing our academic work around that theme, but also at least one cooking activity and at least one art activity. So in these videos, I want to show you guys some of the things that we do to fit the theme, and I have a Pinterest board pertaining to each of the themes. And so along with every single one of these videos, there's going to be a link in the description box to that particular theme's Pinterest board. So make sure that you check those out because I am only showing you some of the things that we're getting into every week, but the board is going to have more activities and also activities for kids of different ages and different abilities. So with all that being said, let's get into our theme. Look at all these feet. We gotta figure out what shoes they go with. Look, where does the medium, where does it fit? In which shoe? Can you grab it? That's your shoe. Yes, that's your shoe. Where does it go? Look. Match. You see? Where does the small foot go? Good job. Nice. Yeah. How about the big foot? Where does the big one go? There also? I'm not sure. Here, what about here on this big shoe? Yeah, that's it. Good work. So you might know by now, one of my favorite things about these videos is showing you just where in the world on Disney properties you can see the influence of our theme of the week. And since we're doing Cinderella, I want to kind of warn you, there are a lot of places. This is almost overwhelming for me to put together, but I have a pretty big list. So I'm starting out with the Princess Fairy Tale Hall at Magic Kingdom. You can meet several of your favorite princesses there, and Cinderella happens to be one of them. One of the most obvious places to find Cinderella's influence in the parks is of course at Cinderella Castle, which is the main icon of the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World. And it's just, I mean, you know you're home when you see Cinderella's castle coming up ahead of you. It does not get more iconic than this, folks. Walking through Cinderella's castle, you see the most incredible, beautiful, and impressive mosaics. It's my favorite part of visiting the castle for sure. Here's something super special just outside the castle is a statue on the fountain here of Cinderella in her kind of peasant form. But if you kneel before her, or if you're looking at her from a child's perspective, the crown that's painted behind her actually appears to be right on her head. So it kind of foreshadows that Cinderella will one day be a princess. Here's another very special thing about Cinderella Castle. And by the way, I'm going to have all of these videos in a playlist that I'll be linking below in the description box so that you can watch them in full at your leisure. But if you go upstairs in Cinderella's castle, and only a select few people get to do this, you can actually see Cinderella's suite. I believe this is invite only, and even if it's not, it's a pretty hefty price tag to stay here, but it is the most luxurious place in all of Disney World property to stay. And if you want a literal taste of Cinderella's castle without that hefty Cinderella's suite price tag, you could eat at Cinderella's royal table, which is a character meal. You get to meet a bunch of princesses while you eat, and you are served the royal best, the most fine food in all of the land. I've never eaten here myself, but I've heard great things. If you have a princess lover in the family, this is a great treat because you get to immerse yourself in the story by eating in the castle, and you get to make sure that you meet all of the princesses, get all of that interaction, all of those autographs in one spot. If you're a fan of character meals, there's another one at the Grand Floridian Resort where you get to meet Cinderella, Prince Charming, you even meet her stepsisters, her evil stepmother, the Lady Tremaine. So talk about immersive. Speaking of Cinderella's stepsisters, at pretty much every Disney park you can meet Rizzle and Anastasia. This footage is actually from Disneyland, but you can see them in Disneyland Paris, you can see them in Disneyland Hong Kong. They are literally all over the world, and they're probably the most fun characters to interact with. They're always quick with a snarky comeback. They're absolutely hilarious, so I would seek them out at the parks if you have the opportunity. And speaking of the influence being felt all over the world, this is Disneyland Paris, Festival of Pirates and Princesses, and there's Cinderella front and center along with all of her princess pals. You've got Mickey right there dressed in his pirate best. So you really, I mean, Cinderella is all over the place. You don't have to look very far to find Cinderella anywhere in the world as long as you're on Disney property. Speaking of Disney property, you might be familiar, if you've ever been anywhere Disney related, with Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. Bibbidi Bobbidi, of course, being a reference to Cinderella's fairy godmother. This is a boutique, a store where you can take your little princess or princes so they can get a full-on makeover. Kiddos leave the boutique feeling like their favorite princess. They get to wear crowns and dresses. They get their hair done, their makeup done. They even have a prince package or a pirate package for little boys or for kiddos that don't feel comfortable in dresses. And these are all over the place. This footage is actually from one in Hong Kong. Lastly, I feel like we can't mention Cinderella without mentioning Prince Charming, and he of course has his very own ride at the Magic Kingdom, Prince Charming's Royal Carousel. So the carousel, you might know, is what actually inspired Walt Disney to open a park in the first place. So this is kind of like the main event, if you will, of the Disney parks. It's what every park is centered around, because we literally would not have a Disney World if Walt Disney himself had not looked at a carousel and thought, wouldn't it be great if I could bring something like this so that families, children, adults everywhere could enjoy this. So yeah, you gotta give Prince Charming his shout out. Thanks for the horses, guy. Which ones do you want? What colors? I'm gonna do pink. You want pink? You can have pink. Here, and I'm gonna take this one and I'll do blue. I am so excited to share this week's recipe with you all. When I decided to do Cinderella, I knew that we needed to have a pumpkin recipe, and so I landed on pumpkin donuts, which is just the perfect fall food in my opinion. So for the batter, we need a ½ cup of pumpkin puree, fresh or canned. You need a ½ cup of brown sugar, packed, a ¼ cup of grapeseed oil, we're using vegetable oil, a ¼ cup of dairy-free milk, I'm using nut pods as usual, 1 cup of gluten-free all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of xanthan gum if your flour blend does not have it, mine does, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice, ½ teaspoon of ground cinnamon, a ¼ teaspoon of nutmeg, and a ¼ teaspoon of kosher salt. You're also going to need 2 tablespoons of melted dairy-free butter, 1/3 cup of granulated sugar, and a teaspoon of ground cinnamon for our cinnamon sugar coating at the end. So we're going to begin our donuts by preheating our oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to spray a donut pan with nonstick spray and set it aside. In a large bowl, we're going to stir together our 1/2 cup of pumpkin puree, our 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 1/4 cup of oil, and our 1/4 cup of dairy-free milk, and set that aside as well. Now in a separate medium-sized bowl, we're going to mix our dry ingredients. So we need our cup of gluten-free all-purpose flour, our teaspoon of xanthan gum if your flour blend requires you add it, our teaspoon of baking powder, and all of our spices. So our pumpkin pie spice, our cinnamon, nutmeg, and salt. At this point, we're going to slowly add all of our dry ingredients to the wet ingredients. Make sure you scrape down all the sides and the bottom of the mixing bowl so that everything is well combined. Then we're going to transfer our donut batter to a Ziploc bag and cut the corner off. If you've got a piping bag, that works as well. We're going to evenly pipe our donut batter into the cavities of our donut pan. I was able to get 6 donuts from this batch of batter. I wanted to smooth out the tops so that they wouldn't come out all squiggly, I guess, from the oven. So I popped them in at 350 degrees for 15 minutes. While the donuts baked, I melted some butter in a bowl, and then in another small shallow bowl, I made my cinnamon sugar. So again, that was 2 tablespoons of dairy-free butter that I'm melting, and then I'm also going to mix in a separate bowl 1/3 cup of granulated sugar. I used raw brown sugar. I thought that that would go well with the pumpkin and the pumpkin spice, and a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Now that the donuts are finished baking, I'm going to remove them from the oven, and I'm going to set a timer for another 15 minutes to let them cool down before we try to take them out of their molds. So this is the Kite Hill butter that I'm using. It's my favorite brand of vegan butter. I'm taking the donuts carefully out of their molds. I'm going to brush some of that melted Kite Hill butter onto them, and then I'm just going to kind of sprinkle the cinnamon sugar over top. It says to dip them, but the donuts felt too delicate for that. So I figured that the brushing and sprinkling method would work best, and these were so good, like happy dance good, as you can see. Alright friends, that's going to be the end of our Cinderella homeschool theme. The pumpkin donuts that we made were so easy and so delicious. I absolutely love the pumpkin donuts from Dunkin', and I haven't been able to have them in years because I eat gluten-free, so these were an absolute blessing. And I knew that my son was gonna love our art activity this week because for whatever reason, squeezing bottles of glue is his favorite craft activity. And so the fact that we just got to use glitter glue to make our magic wands super special, I knew that was right up his alley. If you decide you're gonna do any of these activities with your kiddos, I would love for you to come on back and let me know how they worked out for you. And remember, there's always a link to the theme's Pinterest board in the description box of the video. And even though we're done with Cinderella for now, anytime that I find an activity or recipe or craft that pertains to the topic, I will always go back and add it to the board. So the Pinterest board is constantly evolving, constantly changing, and I do my best to make sure to include activities that are suitable for kids of all ages and all abilities. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, I hope that you'll please give it a big thumbs up. I'd also love it if you would subscribe and click that notification bell because I post at least 3 times a week and I wouldn't want you to miss a minute. Thanks so much again for watching. Bye!